1. So, my friend and I were just eating at this popular bubble tea place in Chinatown, minding our own business. And then here enters the 3 bitches that I take petty revenge on. I'll just randomly name them Brittany, Susan, and Deborah, cause why not? Side note, I speak Cantonese, Chinese dialect. My friend speaks Vietnamese. At a far glance, I sometimes look more Japanese than Chinese for some reason, so that's probably why they didn't care about speaking so loudly in Chinese. The following statements were said, in Cantonese, by the bitches who entered and sat at a nearby table. Brittany: "Look at that fat girl over there. Ugh." Susan: "She needs to stop eating and go to the gym." Brittany: "Ugly people need to stay at home instead of coming out in public." FYI, they were definitely talking about us because, on top of them looking at us, there was only one other group in the back, but that group consisted of pretty skinny people. Another side note: in Cantonese, the word ugly can be interpreted as just bad-looking or unpresentable. But the context she was using the word, it was to be offensive instead of just some opinion. Now this went on for about 5 minutes. I let my friend know because I wasn't just going to let her sit in the dark while these bitches talked shit about her in a fucking different language. In English, this is what I said. Me: "Y'all got something to say?" This was moderately loud, by the way. Brittany: "Can you mind your own business?" Me: "If y'all got shit to say, might as well say it in English." Brittany: "We're not talking about you. How about you stop eavesdropping?" Okay, you're lying to me now, huh? Okay. I devised a plan. I taught my friend the basic Cantonese words for well said, yes, exactly, totally, honestly. Me in Cantonese: "Sis," this is how some people refer to each other who they're close to, "look at those bitches over there. They have some nerve to talk shit, but won't be upfront about it. How pitiful." Friend: "Well said," in Cantonese. Now I said it loud enough for them to hear. I was legit just staring them down with my friend. They noticed, and were trying to act all chill about it. Other things said were: Me: "If that bitch really wants to talk about ugly, she should check her mouth first." I pretty much called her a trash-talking bitch. Me: "You hear that? Now they're quiet." No, they're quiet. How gullible. Me: "This ugly bitch is so insecure about herself, she has to talk shit about people behind their backs." Tisk tisk. Now Brittany had to go get some sauce, and I thought it'd be a great idea to go get napkins with my friend at the same time. Napkins and sauces were next to each other at the front. We timed it to where we ran into Brittany, and she's just looking at us. Then I say, me: "Move, my fat friend is coming through. You might as well back away before you get any of her ugly." Brittany backs away, and my friend and I walk over to get napkins. Then I thought of this nice gem. Me: "Ah, you lowly people, do y'all need napkins? Might as well clean up your mouths or even hide your ugly faces." I used a term that translates to lowly person, but it's more offensive in Cantonese. Anyways, we go back to our table and just look at the trio bitches. Finally, Brittany said something, but this time in English. Brittany: "What do you want from me?" Me: "I want you and your friends to go home since, you know, ugly people need to stay home instead of coming out in public." Deborah suggests that they just apologize for the fat shaming, but Brittany wants to be stubborn. I continue my Cantonese comments for about a minute before Brittany just picks up her stuff and leaves in anger. Her 2 friends follow a few seconds later. I honestly took things out of proportion with my comments, but then again, it all started with the fat shaming, like it's okay if you call someone fat because it's kind of a fact. If my friend is fat. But you don't just say how her being fat makes her ugly, and then say the rest of those negative things. 2. Many years ago, I got a programming job for a very new oil and gas automation company. They were the company that O&G companies would hire to build the SCADA systems for their wells. I had heard of the owner from other people in the industry as being interesting to work with, but if they had come right out and said he was insane, that would have saved me some trouble. I was the only SCADA programmer in the office, and as such, was incredibly busy with our clients. I was also the only other woman than the receptionist. Being in a male-dominated industry had never bothered me. I used to go to well sites and got used to seeing hardcore porn on the walls. I've been out of the industry for over 10 years, so I don't know if they've cracked down on that, but I doubt it. But people would allow me to do my job. The owner of this company, however, treated me like his secretary. He'd expect me to get him coffee, make appointments, etc., all while continuing to do my real job. The last straw was the day he berated me in earshot of a client for failing to pick up his dry cleaning. Even though I had just spent the last 4 hours on the phone, trying to troubleshoot why a well wasn't talking to the SCADA system. Aside, it turned out it was on fire, and no one knew because it was so remote. I had managed to last a month before I finally gave my 2 weeks' notice. Honestly, I could have just walked out, but I wanted to be nice and help him train someone to take my place before I left, so our clients weren't left in the lurch. When I told him I was leaving, he went ballistic. He yelled that he wanted nothing to do with me ever again, and to leave his office that minute because he didn't want to be in the same room for even a second. We would never work together again, and I'd regret leaving. He was still yelling when I turned around and left the building without saying anything. Less than a week later, I had found a new job with an actual oil and gas company. Fast forward a few months and I loved my job. I was on a very busy team that dealt with many of the company's well sites. We had so much work, in fact, that we had to consider bringing in outside contractors. Because I knew the systems we were dealing with better than anyone on the team, I was put in charge of assisting the department manager in choosing an automation company to bring in. Being one of the larger O&G companies meant we were courted by every support company, so we had a ton of bids to go through for this job. One of the lowest bids was, of course, Insane Ex-Manager's company, so he was called in for a meeting. The department manager was running late that day, so she didn't get a chance to brief me as to whom we were meeting before we walked into the conference room, or I would have given her a heads up. We walked in, and the automation company owner's face lost all color when he realized who he was meeting with. Before either the department manager or I could so much as say hello, he started sputtering that there was a misunderstanding between us, and he had no hard feelings if I didn't. I told him that I had no hard feelings against him, but in his own words, we would never work together again. He was right. Epilogue. He ended up making enemies of every O&G company in the city, and eventually went out of business because no one would hire him. We hired a couple of his ex-employees later on, and they told us some horror stories. I actually got away easy. 3. So I was a low-level manager at a restaurant. I was friends with all the servers, I worked my way up, the rest of the managers were mostly brought in. I would work my butt off to help them. I'd clean tables, comp tickets, even when it's my lunch, refill drinks if they were in the weeds, etc. We're in this together, these are my people. I was getting married. Majority of my guests and bridesmaids are my co-workers. I got my dress at Rhymes with Mavid's Bridal. My mom wasn't there for the dress shopping, she lived 5 states away. That weekend we were going back for the fitting, and I was super excited to show my mom my wedding dress and veil. Lady comes in to pick up her to-go order. Chicken fingers and fries. They had just been made piping hot. No problems or exceptions to the order. She's wearing a branded bridal polo. She comes back 2 minutes later, claims the order is cold, we used old fries, etc. I watched them make the order. She must have opened the box in the car, there's no way it's cold. But, okay, we'll make you another. I get the kitchen to drop the new tenders and fries. The general manager goes to comp the meal. We always go over the top for customer service. Lady then claims to-go girl was rude to her. I was there, she didn't do anything out of turn. She doesn't care too much about fighting over chicken fingers. She said, "Okay, let me get a manager, we're so sorry." Somehow in the 8 minutes to turn the order around, Lady is even more upset. Manager tries to give her a card for another free chicken finger meal next time she comes in. Order comes up. We give the new hot order to the now yelling lady. She's mad because To-Go Girl wasn't punished enough in front of her. I guess the general manager was supposed to humiliate my friend in front of everyone? He said he'll take care of the discipline problem. He won't, but he apologizes again. She opens her bag of food, opens the box and hurls it. The sauce spills all over my friend's shirt, and she has hot fries and chicken fingers thrown in her face. The lady stomps out. I ask my boss to make a call after we all share the "holy shit, she's crazy." He's confused. I've never asked to use my cell phone on the floor, but he goes along with it. I call Mavid's Bridal and tell them I was a guest at a restaurant and their employee just dumped food and yelled obscenities while in uniform representing their company. Furthermore, I was a bride coming in for a fitting this weekend. I describe the lady and say I don't want her anywhere near my appointment. On top of her being crazy unprofessional, I have people coming in from out of town. It's a special time for me. I don't want her vibe to ruin it. Manager there promises she won't be and is appalled. I've never called anyone else out for bad behavior while in uniform, but my general manager thought this was awesome, and I was totally rocking a PettyRevenge lady boner. Update. I did in fact go back many times. Bridesmaids and additional fittings, shoes, everything wedding. Stopped seeing that lady sometime through these appointments. I didn't notice at first when, but suddenly months had gone by and her face was no longer there. So she probably did get fired, likely not the first incident or unprofessional behavior she displayed. 4. 2004. I'm a few years out of college at my third career posting at a radio station as a promotions director, managing promotions for 2 stations for the Threesley Broadcasting Company. Stable job, hard but decent work, nice but older crowd. Turns out the guy who hired me has a crush on a former station employee who left to work on the Jenny Jones show. He then returned to us after that show got cancelled. He asks me to take her on as an intern, knowing full well that made no sense as she had logged more time in her past at the station than I had accrued myself. Sure enough, a few weeks later I'm out the door, she's got my job, and they're dating. As a promotions director, I was responsible for all the station's contests, and the station's adherence to FCC rules on radio contests, which are strict as fuck. Google Prize Chance Consideration and radio. Around the time of my firing, our station and everyone else was sucked in by the Trading Spaces TV show craze. So the station decided to bring in a bunch of local businesses to try to pull it off, offering free renovations to a pair of listeners. Except doing that by the rules would be a major pain in the ass, especially if the winners were actually selected by random. They could have major remediation work necessary prior to these fantasy renovations, insurance and liability issues due to unpermitted structures already on their property, etc. So, the geniuses decided to cherry-pick a pair of winners that would be easiest to give renovations to. Bad idea. I advised them of this, as was my job, and was shit-canned the same week. My first move was to send a cute little email to the station fan database, which I still had access to, letting them know about the scam contest they were all hoping to win in a yet-to-be-held drawing. I then received a call from the station manager, telling me my severance offer was being rescinded, or about $600. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't just work for one station, there were 2. A 70s, 80s and 90s adult contemporary station, and a new station that the company was in the process of selling. So I fired up a web browser to fcc.gov and blew the big ol' whistle on their scam contest practices. Boom. FCC investigation commences, the sale is put on hold, and they have to reduce the asking price by a full $1 million before the sale goes through. Kiss my ass, Threesley Broadcasting, and Gary the Bagel Guy. 5. A good friend of mine has about 4 years ago inherited the house of his grandparents. He decided to live there for the time being, till he has decided what to do with the house. He grew up in it, so he did not really want to sell it. Not even a week after he moved in, he got a visit from a neighborhood committee. They said they are the 3 board members of the Homeowners Association, and are here so he can sign his membership papers. They were extremely nosy and rude. For example, one tried to get into the garage without so much as asking. When he stopped him and asked him where he wanted to go, he had the audacity to say, "I need to check your garage. If everything in there is in order, I have a right to do this bi-weekly, and denying me access is an offense that will cost a fine." He then had enough of their audacity and kicked them out of the house. While doing so, one of the board members shoved some papers into his face and told him he needed to sign this right now. He would live there a week already, and his papers had to be signed before moving in. Once they were gone, he took a look at the papers. They were fucking ridiculous, and gave the Homeowners Association rights that were simply unfucking real. They had, for example, a right to visit your home bi-weekly, and check things like you do not use the garage for storage, don't have gasoline in containers in your garage, same goes for gas. You had to mow your lawn every week, snow had to be shoveled every 2 hours when it snowed, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. You could not park more than 1 car on your grounds, except inside the garage, and a ton of other bullshit. A few days later they came back, and asked him why he did not sign the papers yet. They also wanted to check the garage again. This time he would not even let them in, and told them that he would never become a member of their stupid club. To them, that meant war. Within a week, they had sent him fines north of $1,000, several of which were for denying them access to his home, each worth $250. My friend simply did not take them seriously, and used their stupid letters to help fire his grill. Then the day came when they went extremely too far. He came back, and one of the board members had broken into his garage, stood in it, and was writing things down on his notepad. But that was not even the worst part. He had 2 wonderful oak trees in front of the house. They had been planted by his great-grandparents when they were newlyweds and moved into the house. The Homeowners Association was in the process of taking them down. They had called a professional crew for this. One was already so damaged, basically all twigs were already down. It was just a stump that was left. The other one they had just started with, he fucking lost it. He told the tree crew to stop right the fuck now, and explained to them that he was the owner, and that what they did was highly illegal. They had no idea, since the board member claimed these trees were in violation of the rules, since supposedly too many leaves went to the neighbor's garden. He had told them that was no legal reason to put them down, but the board member claimed he had given his okay, because the trees were in violation of the rules of the Homeowners Association. He looked it up later. They actually had a bylaw that if a garden produces more than 1 40-liter sack of leaves within 2 weeks, the garden owner needs to take down the offending trees within 2 weeks. He told them he would overlook them trespassing if they would be witnesses in court for him. Then he called the cops on the board members for trespassing, breaking and entering. They actually had used a bolt cutter to get into the garage. He always had it closed with a big fucking bike lock after they had tried to get in it twice before. The process must have been glorious. Not only did they have to repay him for the lock and the tree, which was worth a shit ton of money north of $50,000, if I remember right, plus damages for the second tree. He had a professional tree person look after it, so all the damage healed properly, which alone cost over $1,000. But these idiots actually thought the trial would have been unfair, and tried to fight it, which probably cost him an additional $10,000 to $15,000 in lawyers and court costs. All in all, this trial must have cost him over $120,000. Then he went to yet another civil court and sued them for emotional damage. He told them how much these trees meant to him since his great-grandparents had planted them, with seeds from the home country. He really laid it on as thick as he could. Plus he felt threatened by the Homeowners Association and can hardly sleep, because he always fears they'll try to get into his house. The court actually bought it, and gave him $500,000, plus the cost for a state-of-the-art alarm system, so he can feel safe again in his own home. So, put all together, he cost the Homeowners Association nearly $750,000. They had to file for bankruptcy, and get a person to check the books so my friend would get his money. The best is for last. The mediator found out that these 3 pricks had been defrauding the Homeowners Association for well over 10 years, and were giving out as many fines as they possibly could so they could use it to bolster their income. All 3 had to sell their houses so they could pay out my friend. Now he is, for most people, one of the favourite people living there, and he constantly gets invited over for grilling and whatnot. You see, most people never wanted the Homeowners Association in the first place, but the board members practically forced them to sign the contract, claiming it would not be optional, and if they did not sign before moving in, it would be a $500 fine. Only 6 of the over 50 members actually wanted this Homeowners Association, and people think they did it to get a part of the action as a reward for spying out their neighbours to find violations. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream. It is sweet and best served cold. Also, big thanks to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please do let me know in the comments. That's how you get more. If you didn't, then I won't do them anymore and I'll try something else. Always looking for new ideas. Got a few other things on the boil that I'm looking into. Military stories and the like. We'll see what I can come up with. And with that, I think I'm going to head off for now. It's Sunday after all, and I might go for a bike ride if the weather's good. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.